name of my channel is Maharaj Abhijan, denotes the blending of Maharashtra and Rajasthan. We talk about sharing these two cultures, its values, teaching, and philosophy. Abhijan means aristocrat of the society, someone who contributes to it. Today, our special guest is from Germany. His name is Hans Turstig. He has been visiting India since last 50 years. Hans has been translating various Sanskrit texts into German. His understanding and curiosity about the Indian culture, art, traditions, philosophy, and a way of living makes him very interesting individuals. He has written more than 20 books and published numerous research articles. Let us talk with him now.
I was born in 1949 in Germany, and after the war, life was a bit difficult, and the war was still not going on, but the effects were still be there. But as far as my personal life was, I was always very early on, I was puzzled by the question, what am I doing here? What is this life about? So I went into deep discussions with our teachers about the Christian religion. I was born a Christian, and I found it very dissatisfying because they could not answer these questions. And so I became very inquisitive. What else is there? I looked into Buddhism. Was the first thing I looked into before I even know that there were other religions than the Christian. But that also didn't really help. And then I got, education carried away. But I went to school and learned I learned Latin and Greek and whatever one used to learn in those days. And there were other influences like Socrates and Aristotle and Kant and stuff like that. So then later, when I was a little later, I began to draw consequences. That means I left the Christian church and became a seeker, basically. And then I became interested in India. I read the autobiography of a yogi by Yogananda, which opened a totally new door. I didn't know what India was really. In those days, India was a country far away. We had no idea about nobody taught us about Indian scriptures or something. And that became later on. So after I finished school, I started studying all kinds of things. But then I was drawn to India, to Indian philosophy, Indian religion, to Sanskrit as a language, which I then became a student of. And after some time, I realized that just studying Sanskrit in Germany wouldn't really make it for me, because studying Sanskrit was part of a linguistic studies. So it was important for people who studied linguistics, because Sanskrit is the oldest Indo-European language. So whoever studied linguistics had to study Sanskrit. But I wanted to learn what is written in Sanskrit, not just the language.
Not just technical one. You want to go into the next step of that.
Exactly, yeah. So it was good to learn Sanskrit, but in Germany, once you learn Sanskrit, then it's over. You don't talk about this thing. And then I heard about Indology, that you can study, more than the language. And then I decided that why not just go to India and study it there and have a context of what it is. And then in 1973 I went to India and to study at the Pune University, study Sanskrit, and became involved more and more into Indian studies, which then was basically my whole life was about India from then onwards.
See, when you came in Pune, so you want to learn Sanskrit.
Yeah.
You have some difficulties that time to learn. So whoever people you got in that period, you discuss about that also.
Well, it was difficult to come to India. There were many things happening because you had to have the paperwork, the visa and all this. I had to be admitted as a student at the Pune University. And then when I finally arrived there for then these other students, they had already learned Sanskrit in school, and then I had one Rambau Dimble. He was my main Sanskrit teacher to help me. I went to him every week for 4 days at least. We had 2 hours of Sanskrit. That helped me to follow the Sanskrit that was taught at the university. At that time at the university, they were either teaching in English or in Sanskrit. English was also not really my language. I had to learn that too. And Sanskrit was difficult, but so then I became interested in different types of texts that I read and translated a few things and studied like a normal student.
So just to our audience, which kind of work you have done, which kind of books you are written, and which paper you have published. So give a brief idea.
Yeah, very briefly. I was basically interested in mathematics and physics, and so I read texts about the Nyaya Vaisheshika. They had a theory of atoms and all this, which I studied and published some articles about the teachings of the Nyaya Vaisheshika thing, and I talked about the processes of how things come, where things come from and where they go to. This kind of thing I discussed in articles that I wrote about that. But very later on, I became also interested in something weird like the Indian sorcery, the black magic that they do and all this.
You can say about Tantra Vidya?
Tantra Vidya was later on that I did not go into the practice of that because I was always afraid of, I didn't really know what that actually meant. Because a lot of people talk about Tantra and they mean having sex, and that was not really my thing. So, and then I wrote I did my PhD in.
You went again?
I went back to Germany to do my PhD because the PhD in Indian PhD was at that time in the West was not really recognized. And so I wanted to become an Indologist and teacher at the university and all this. For that, I had to have a PhD from another country, and so Germany.
Which was your subject for the PhD? You remember?
My subject was, my subject was Jyotisha, the system of Indian astrology.
So.
And because there I could combine philosophical things with the pure mathematical, like the 27 nakshatras were different from the Western astrology. We only deal with the Rashis and not the nakshatras. So I became very involved in it, and later also I practiced for some time. I practiced astrology in Germany, but then I gave that up.
So have you read Leelavati or?
Leelavati is a text on mathematics, but I translated the Saravali, which is a text on Indian astrology, which was not translated by that time. That was part of my PhD. And I described the whole system, and I translated the Saravali and Vidyamaraviya were also a text where part of that I translated also to have the to base what I wrote about astrology with the Indian text, with the translation of that.
Have you read Varahamir's work and all that?
Yeah, Varahamir, I read all that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was very, actually,
because I am from a mathematics background, that's why I'm asking you.
I was very, very much impressed with Indian mathematics. As you know, for example, the
Bhaskaracharya and all that.
Yeah, Bhaskaracharya was in it. But the thing is that the Indians invented the zero as a number. And that was a breakthrough for the humanity, because before that people could not calculate really. The Romans could not calculate. They had no zero as a number. That was a peculiar Indian thing. And I was also, like what you mentioned, Leelavati was a text that he wrote and for his daughter, and that had a lot of methods of how you can calculate in your brain without writing anything. And that was very tricky, these things. Indians have a very good way of dealing with numbers. You can see how they deal with computers and all that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sanskrit was the basis for the first computer languages. It's so scientific,
So you've written more than 20 books. So you
Yeah.
wrote about Bhakti Sutra also. So tell something about that.
Well, I spent some 8 years in an ashram, as I told you
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
in an
Yeah, yeah.
ashram with Muktananda in Ganeshpuri, and there I wrote many articles also in their magazines, and I wrote a lot about Shaktipat,
Yeah,
because Shaktipat is one of the basic ideas or methods of Indian transmission of energy and awakening the Kundalini to come to a different type of understanding and consciousness. So that was very interesting to me, because then of course I wanted my Kundalini to be awakened, you know, in a very naive way. You know, I thought if I'm just a nice person and say Om Namah Shivaya all the time, then I become enlightened. That was the early confusion. So I wrote about Shaktipat and all this. And then I wrote also, I did a new translation of the main Upanishads. I wrote them, I translated the Upanishads into German. Yeah, that was a very nice, very nice. And I also translated the text, a book by Nisargadatta Maharaj from English into, at that time I knew Marathi, but they didn't give me the tapes. I was actually a little bit not so happy about that, but that was a very nice work for me to do. I learned a lot by translating.
So
text.
you learn Marathi also.
Yes, I learned
After
Marathi,
that, you wrote about the poet like Arun Kolatkar. So
Yeah,
say something about him.
Arun Kolatkar, unfortunately, I don't remember, but I don't think I never met him personally, but I knew about him, and I translated a small booklet of him called the Kaliya Kavita. It's all poetry, and I also, personally, I write a lot of poetry too, so I enjoyed his translation, and he wrote about Khandoba in Jejuri also. He was
So tell me the experience about Jejuri.
Yeah, Jejuri was because of my professor Sanskrit, my German professor Sontheimer. He spent a lot of time in Jejuri. He did research on the Dangas, on the shepherds, and on their traditions and their ovis, and they had a lot of oral traditions of them. And so through him, I of course came to know about all this. And so we went a lot to Khandoba, Jejuri. The Somati Amavasya festival was always a very, and there I had my first so-called, I wouldn't call them spiritual experience, but experiences that you cannot have in Germany or in Europe. An Indian festival is something very unique, I mean.
Before going to Raman Ashrama, you travel lot in India and different school of spirituality. You tell something about this to the audience.
Well, I learned, of course, about Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya, I was a little bit disappointed. I don't know if that is the right word, but his Advaita is based on the difference between reality and illusion. And I
like
found
Mayavad, you can say.
Yeah, I found that confusing, because if everything is one, how can you have two, reality and the illusion, you know? And the teachers of the Kashmir Shaiva tradition, Abhinavagupta, Kshemaraja, and they dissolved this, and they said reality and illusion is the same thing. And that is of course a little bit confusing for our mind to think like that, but at least it was not contradictory. You cannot talk about one and have two. So that made a great impression on me. And I went to read with Lakshman Ju in Kashmir. I was in Srinagar when he was still alive, and that was also a very important influence on my own development. And then I traveled, of course, to all the major places of pilgrimage in the Himalaya and everywhere. So that was
like Kedarnath,
Badrinath,
Gangotri, Yamunotri.
Yeah. I went to all these places, and I also experienced a lot of
Kailas Manas Sarovar, you went?
No, I didn't go there. No. But these places where I went were very moving to me, because it takes you out of your normal way of being, and in some ways it was very confusing to me, because I like to have everything very orderly, logic, and 1 and 1 is 2 and not 3. And these, I mean, if you want to, you can compare it a little bit to simple drug experience with LSD or so that take you out of your normal consciousness, and you suddenly realize things can be very different than what we used to, and that I had in these places too, especially in Badrinath and Kedarnath. They were just overwhelming for me.
So after that you learn about the Bhakti movement
Yes.
also.
Then,
just tell me about it.
exactly. Then I, in 1975, I moved into the ashram of Muktananda, and that was, of course, mainly about bhakti. Bhakti, devotion to the Guru, and I did this very intensely for more than 8 years. And I wrote also a translation, my own translation of the Bhakti Sutras. It's published in German. And
Narad Muni's Bhakti Sutra.
yeah, Narada
Bhakti
Sutras. And then this whole devotional thing somehow, for several reasons, didn't make much sense to me anymore. One reason was that I discovered that my guru was not a real nice person, so to speak. And I saw a lot of gurus were not really living up to their own teachings. And that made me very confusing. The other thing was that I was very, as I said before, was very involved in Advaita. And Bhakti is not Advaita. Bhakti is you're different from the Guru. And I don't know who it was, one of those saints that said he doesn't want to become enlightened, he wants to experience the juice of being devoted to his Guru. And that I couldn't follow that. That was kind of, I liked, you
can say Amruta Anubhav.
Yeah, Amruta
Anubhav written by Naneshwar.
Yeah. Naneshwar was a very important person, saint for me too, and his Sopana, his brother also. But then this devotion was more, was not really my. I felt like Nimkaroli Baba, you have a lot of famous people around Nimkaroli Baba, Ramdas, Richard Alpert, Ramdas and Krishna Das and these people. Very beautiful person. But for my experience, it was all still not the liberation that I was looking for. It was all, you are here and there's the Guru.
So tell me something about Raman Maharshi and you came close to his philosophy.
Yeah, that was later on. I was, after I finished I was married and had 2 children and 3 grandchildren now. And so after that was more or less settled, I could come for longer periods of time to India. And since 1998, I was basically focusing on Ramana Maharshi, and I lived in Tiruvannamalai at the Arunachala, and there I really found something that made totally sense to me. And that was his questioning, who am I, what am I doing here? Which was my question anyway. But I've never really, I saw this always as a question, what am I doing here? Why, who am I, it's so obvious to understand that you are not what you think you are. But I never thought that this could be a spiritual practice or path to ask this question.
So this is a self-realization of your own way.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if you just always follow something that somebody else has told you to, if you follow rules and regulation and you are obedient, you obey the Guru, you obey this and you obey God and all this, this is then you just you're like a parrot, like they say in Marathi, you're a popat.
So basically now I'm taking advantage of asking few questions because you are from a different culture and different country also.
Yeah.
So if you want to think about the Western way of thinking, so what are the advantage and disadvantage, and similarly for the Indian way of thinking, advantage and disadvantage.
Well, let's start first with the Westerners. The advantage of the Westerners is to become very proficient, very good in controlling things. We try to control everything, and that is an advantage, and also, of course, a disadvantage, because at the end you cannot be creative anymore. Because
more elaborately, if you want to talk about that, so argumenting or starting asking questions.
Exactly.
So whenever you have a doubt, you started asking questions, and you want to get satisfied of your own by experiencing by your own self.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is the Western way of thinking.
Right.
And Indian is Guru Shishya Parampara, and
Yeah.
Guru is telling, and we consider as it is a obedient Shishya or obedient disciple. Whatever Guru is telling, that is the final word. So how will you relate all these two things?
Well, that's very difficult, because if you follow the Guru Shishya Sambandha and then you don't follow what your Guru tells you to do, then you're basically not fit for that path. That means if you are too critical in an ashram, they tell you to leave, because they cannot handle that. And for me, it was always the opposite. I didn't believe in just being obedient. The obedience can be very nice in many ways, and in some parts of your life. But if you want to become liberated, whatever that may mean, to just follow what somebody else tells you doesn't mean anything. It's the only thing. When somebody points to the moon, and you think the moon looks like a finger, then you are totally wrong, no? So in that sense, if somebody tells you do this, do that, and then you do it, and you don't get, nothing happens, then you get frustrated, and you say, I've done all this, I've been a nice guy, I said 10,000 times Om Namah Shivaya, and I'm still not liberated. And that's when Ramana Maharshi comes into the game. So when I went to him to see him in, of course I saw him in 74, not him, but the ashram, since 1998 I come to Tiruvannamalai, the sacred mountain Arunachala, and there I came into the simple. I didn't read much of Ramana Maharshi. I just understood that he said, ask yourself, who am I? Sit down, shut up, don't think anything. And you can practice that as, anytime. Like now I can ask myself, who is talking? Who is this guy talking here and like this? And who are you listening? You can ask yourself too. But it's a personal thing. There's nobody else involved with. And there's no answer to this question. It's not one day I wake up and say, oh, I'm the great guru or something. This is all a distraction.
So basically, see...
it gives you the direction in life. It gives you a direction. And you can shut up. If you have a problem, you ask who is having the problem. Instead of dealing with the problem, you ask with the person who has that problem. Who is that? And there's nobody there. And there will nobody be there.
No,
because that is the whole idea of also the Upanishads, no?
You see, if you see the tradition of Western, that is start from the Socrates, Plato, Aristotle.
Yeah.
Plato's dialogues are there.
Yeah.
And here we have Guru Shishya Parampara.
Yeah.
So we want to take the coherence of these two, or we want to take the interface. So if we want to take two things, good things together, so what will be that?
Well, I think it will be a creative criticism, I would say. You are criticizing the teachings that anybody can tell you anything. You become enlightened if you hold your arm 12 years into the air. And then people do that, and then they wonder why they are not enlightened. So to have a critical approach to whatever somebody tells you, not just blindly obey. Because the Germans are very good in blindly obedience. No? The whole Hitler thing was obedient. The Führer tells you what to do, and then you do it, and you don't think about it. And then afterwards you say, oh, I just followed orders. So that is the negative part of that. And in India, the Guru Shishya Sambandha is basically also the complete 100% obedient to the Guru. They say if you do not learn and know how to obey to your Guru, you cannot make it. Because then the Guru tells you jump off the cliff. If you don't do it, then what? There are all these kind of stories. But on the other hand, the reason for that is that the Guru knows something about the path that you don't know. And so if the Guru tells you don't do this, this will lead you, and you say, why shouldn't I do this? I do whatever I want to do. Then you come to the arrogance of the Westerners. You say, what the Guru tells me, I don't care about that. I know what to do. and that is the opposite. So these two, to come together, to put this together, is very difficult. It's not something you can once and for all decide to do or not to do. It's a daily practice of seeing how much do I need to obey, how much do I need to be critical, what can I accept and what can I not accept, but not simply following what so and so said or even what the science tells you to do. You know?
See, now if you see the NRI of Indians, they have one leg in the other country and one leg in India.
Yeah.
So it may happen with you also.
Yeah.
You came frequently in India and went back also.
Yeah.
So in this dilemma of living the life.
Yeah.
So whenever you want to take the decision,
Yeah.
so which path will be better one?
I'm 100% on an Indian now.
So what are the reasons for that?
The reasons are that this is more human. You know, as I tell, we often talk about this, and people say, how can you live in India with all these cows and these dirty things and these and that? And I said, yeah, but look at the Westerners. You know, the Westerners are basically solving problems like machines. There's no humanity anymore. There is a little bit like
a commodity, we can say.
Yeah, and in India, you know, like often you can see Indian discussing, they get into a fight, you know, 10 people, like one day I told you, my neighbors, they were fighting, and they were screaming and yelling and going on and on and on, and then other people were calming them down, and then this was a human affair, and then after an hour or so everybody was happy again and they didn't hate each other or anything, you know. In the West, if you have 10 people fighting like that, they call the police, and then the police arrests everybody, and then it's an inhuman way of solving problems. And this is what I like about India. The solving of problems is a human affair. Mm-hmm. It is deeply human, and you have the Panchayat tradition. If you cannot solve it, you go to the elders in the community and they help you, you know, because they have more experience. All this doesn't make any sense in the West. Whether you have experience or not, this is the law and you violate the law, therefore you go to jail.
See, now there is one slight boundary in superstitiousness and belief and superstitiousness. So many times what happen, the Guru Shishya Parampara or the Indian way of thinking, you surrender to some philosophy, you surrender to some guru, or you never ask a question to him. And many times what happened, that blindness, the blind way of surrendering yourself to the certain way of putting your life to the entire that kind of thing. In that sense, your way of thinking is became the way you are. Hence, the tradition of Indian Guru Shishya Parampara is you are not asking the question to him. So I was asking you previously the question, we want to interface or we want to coherence or we want to take the LCM of these two. You are a maths person. So in that sense, the good thing from the Western and the good thing from Indian. So we suppose you have traveled 20 years in India and you have a lot of exposure also. You are a practitioner, you are an author, you are doing research also. So your opinion make a lot of sense. So we want to live that kind of a life. Nowadays so many things are coming together, so many technology and all that. So we want to live life together, good thing from Western and good thing from Indian. So can you try on that ground?
Yes. See, there's a difference between leading your life and trying to become liberated. These are two different pairs of shoes. If you're kind of involved in your family life, for example, you know, you cannot tell your wife bye-bye, I go and become self-realized. You can do that, but that I think is not good. It's not dharma, and it's also for the others not good. So you have to follow first what your life demands you to do. If you have a wife, you cannot, you know, leave
basic duties.
Basic duties. And so in that sense, the basic duties, you have teachings, you know, how to behave in society. You don't kill your neighbor because he's a stupid idiot, you know, these kind of basic things that we teach our children also, you know. Don't, if you have an opinion, different from the other, you don't kill each other, you just talk about it, no? This non-violent communication, as we call that. So that is something totally different from I would say the mumukshutva, as you call it, the desire for liberation, where you finally come to the point where you have no interest in all this anymore, all this outer world, so to speak, and you come to the question, who am I? What am I doing here? You know, what is the point of marrying, having children, and then children have children, and everybody is just moving on and on and on. And I think there's a very beautiful poem. Due to my age, I don't remember it, but it says like it is a prayer to God, you know, to tell me what do I have to change and what do I have to accept. You know, this is the basic principle. We cannot try to change everything, but we also cannot try to simply accept everything. So there's a dynamic in this of our life and our psychological life of figuring out, like if you have political things, like now, for example, the Gaza, the genocide there, you know, we cannot accept it, but we also cannot change it. So that, what do we do, no? So the idea of the prayer is, you know, to give us the wisdom of what we can change and what we have to accept. I think this is a very deep teaching for us, and we don't need to ask anybody about that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows, you know, there's the other thing, don't do something to others that you don't want them to do to you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the golden rule also, it's the same thing. But this is all about social life. It has nothing to do with the liberation, and that is not existence in Germany or in the Western culture. It's all about, if you are like my forefathers, they leave little diaries and stuff. For them it was always to behave properly, so that when you die you go to heaven and sit with Jesus and be happy forever. But there's no real, there's no responsibility, you might say, as for your own liberation. And that is what I like about India. They have a path to liberation, which to my knowledge only India has. And the difficult thing is that Indians forget about it now. And you say now some come back and try to find out about their tradition, because if you go the Western way, which most Indians used to do at least, then you do the same bullshit as the Westerners do. It's not different. It's just like, you know, the women want to be emancipated. And when you understand the emancipation of the women, of becoming a man like a man, then you totally miss the boat. No? And it's the same thing with the westernization of India. There are good things, and I'm sure, like for example, I think India has two big problems, the garbage and the corruption. If you can get rid of that, then India will be almost perfect.
I'll come to my few questions, then we'll end this discussion today.
Yeah.
Basically, Raman Maharshi told about Maun Sadhana or Maun.
Yeah.
And Gautam Buddha also told about Vipassana.
Yeah.
So, have you done both of that? So, what is the difference you find, or have you experienced something good from that?
Well, it's the same what I said before. You have to first make up your mind or understand in which kind of phase of your life you are. You know, if you are a householder, then you cannot sit there and not say anything to your wife. No? Then she will be not happy. And if she is a Mauna, you will be not happy. So it depends on the phase. There are different stages in life, the householder, and you know, you have all these kind of things. And so in the end, when you look at the Mauna thing, for example, the Buddha left his wife and children and went off to become something. So we still think he's a great being. If he would not have become the Buddha, we would think he's a bad guy. You know, he left his wife and children and went off to some self-realization. And a lot of people in India and in Germany and in Europe too, They do that now. They want to get rid of their problems by becoming liberated, but that is not the point of liberation. And therefore it is very, very different to become liberated, but that is the main point of the Indian. You have the fourth state of, once you have finished your, the tradition is when your oldest child takes everything over, then you can say goodbye to your family, and then you can go to the forest and be a mauna or something, but not before. And then it's also not easy. It's not like you sit there and after 3 days of silence you suddenly become a saint or something. It's also not about becoming a saint at all. All this is distraction. And this is what I learned from Ramana. Ask yourself, who am I, what am I doing here, and don't worry about whatever else.
See, my last question is, you came frequently to India, and now when I ask you the question about which one, so you selected the Indian,
yes,
or Indian way of thinking.
Yeah.
So what are the good things? Because as an Indian, suppose two players are playing chess,
Yeah.
they will not find what is the wrong in that, but the third person who is watching, he can basically find out what is the correct one.
Yeah.
So you came from Europe, so you have a different eyesight.
Yeah.
So please tell our audience few things the India should proud of.
Yeah.
And the people, they started following Western things. So how that will be not good enough, because you are satisfied with the Indianness.
Yeah.
So what kind of things they are valuable to Indians? They don't know.
Yeah. Well, as I said, basically it depends on which state in your life you are. So if you are in your state of life of a householder, I think the Westerners have a more, what should I say, more efficient type of life. The electricity doesn't go off all the time and all this kind of stuff. But in general, I would say that the Indians should be proud of and should be really remembering their own tradition. Indian tradition is the oldest continuous tradition in the world. Benares is the oldest. There are older cities, of course, in Sumer and all this, but there are no more. Nobody lives there anymore. In Benares, still people are living. It's the oldest inhabited city in the world, and that reflects a kind of tradition that is very, very strong and has something to do with us human beings. And this is why I always prefer the Indian way, because the Indian way is the human way. You are human beings. Even in the biggest fights, you are still human beings. And the Westerners are not. And now with the latest development of artificial intelligence and all this will be even worse in the future.
Yeah, that question is also important.
Exactly, because now the West goes into the transhumanistic way. That means you're not a human being anymore. And not only that, I've done some talking with ChatGPT and this kind of artificial intelligence, and it is very obvious that this AI also says it. If the human being combines the technology with biology, they will be destroyed. This is the wrong path. I mean, I say that out of my deepest conviction. This will not survive, and we might survive as some kind of a species, but not as human beings anymore. And this is what we are now involved in. And India is very, very in a dangerous situation of imitating that, combining technology and biology. By that I mean that you are actually your body becomes implanted with technological elements, which, for example, connect you to the internet 24 hours a day or whatever. People like that. They think, and it's all about a wrong understanding of life. What is the point of this? They say, then with the artificial intelligence we can live for 260 years. We don't even know what to do with 50 years of life. What are we going to do 260 years? If we don't know who we are and what we are doing here, this has no meaning at all. It's complete nonsense. So therefore I really like the Indian way, and I pray to God that you are not following the Western path with this thing. It doesn't look like it, unfortunately.
So this was a good point to summarize and Mr. Hans.
Yeah.
He basically from Germany, and last so many years he came India, and now he want to become Indian in all the ways, and he accepted and he found something good in India and its philosophy. So it was my honor today. It was a good discussion, and in that discussion it is good for the people who think about and they want to fly, they want to become NRI.
Yeah.
They completed their IT degree and they want to go to the USA or Europe. If they see this broadcast, they will definitely think about it, the valuable Indianness.
Yeah.
And today you give your valuable time.
Yeah.
And you discuss lot of things on the way you think and the way you traveled.
Yeah.
It is a good opportunity to talk with him, with you, sir.
Yeah, I was very happy also. And let me tell you one more to make it very clear. I think that the Indian tradition is the only way out of the disaster we are in now. If the Indians follow this, what you just said, going to America and doing this and that, and because we have all this beautiful, this is all, this is a way to destruction. And of course you can say this is Kali Yuga and then comes all this. But I believe that we as human beings, we can remain human beings. And human being means we make mistakes, we are sometimes angry, we are this and that. Human beings doesn't mean we are perfect. That is the wrong way. And this will be a disaster, what is happening now. And for me, the only people in the world who can stop this are the Indians. I really believe that.
So my channel's name itself is Maharaj Abhijan. So myself, I'm crossing the boundaries and my radius is became bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I was doing for 2 states, but today because of you, I started talking with two countries.
Yeah.
And I thanks to Rambau Dimble.
Yeah.
He had also given me that opportunity to share my ideas and share your thinkings, thinking about the Indian way of life.
And also, not to say that I'm special or anything, that is not my intention. But the Indians should also be aware that this type of thinking that I've been, this is only very few people in India and in the West, very few people who see it like that. The most people are involved in this outer beauty and what we can do and all this, what is now available to us with the artificial intelligence. But I really tell you that this is a disaster. And I hope again, I'm not the only one who says that. It's not that I'm not a special one because of that. But there are many people who do this, and more people in the West realize that this is a disaster we are heading at. And we don't have much more time. The window is closing.
So you know Marathi quite well. So I will say in Marathi, मी तुमचा खूप खूप आभारी आहे. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद सर.